Totally welcome. When we say we are inclusive, we mean it. It doesn't matter about your race, your background, your sexuality, your faith, your spirituality, none. Otherwise, anything like that, you are really, really welcome here. And I hope that you enjoy this afternoon. About what's coming up, we are doing a series on Lent in this month. So that's what we'll be kind of focusing on today. There'll be some singing, there'll be some glitter, there'll be communion. So there's lots of things to look forward to. If you want to know more about what's coming up, you can grab a running order from the table over there. You can also go online if you've got a smartphone, inclusivegathering.co.uk. .org.uk?
I forgot to do it again.
It's just not on there. Just get a piece of paper instead. It's great. Ben's modelling the piece of paper, so you can get a piece of paper.
There's a picture of the paper.
Picture of the paper. We are live streaming on YouTube, so if you don't want to be on camera, the camera is just here, so you should be okay sitting where you are. We are going to get started soon, but before we do, it's important to also say, if you want to kind of chill out, there are spaces at the back. You can sit anywhere you like, that you're going to be happy. You can also, if we've got any kids in the room who are under 10, we do have a kids club down the corridor if you want to take your children to that. I'm going to hand over to the band. Have a great service.
Hi everyone, good afternoon, welcome along. We're going to get started with our first couple of songs. So please do stand if you are willing and able to do so.
Normally I've been practicing that long.
I don't want to block this.
Everyone needs compassion, love that's never fading, and mercy for me. Everyone needs forgiveness, kindness of the Savior, the hope of nations. Forever the mountains. My God is mighty to save. He is mighty to save. Forever, author of salvation. He rose and conquered the grave. Jesus conquered the grave.
Shine your light.
Shine your light and let the whole world see. We're singing for the glory of the risen King. Jesus, shine your light and let the whole world see. We're singing for the glory of the risen King.
Take me as you find me, Lord. I am yours. Be with us as we worship together. Be with us as we get to know each other more. Be with us as we get to know you more, Lord. You're a God who loves us and fights for us and accepts us. And just be with us as we continue worshiping in every single aspect. Amen.
Amen. In Christ alone,
My hope is found. He is my light, my strength, my song. This cornerstone, this solid ground, firm through the fiercest drought and storm. Nor heights of love, nor depths of peace, when fears are still, when striving cease. My comforter, my only Lord, here in the love of Christ I stand. There in the ground His body lay, light of the world, thy darkness sway. Then bursting forth in glorious day, up from the grave He rose again. And as He stands in victory, since death has lost its grip on me, for I am His and He is mine, all in the precious blood of Christ.
no
Guilt in life, no fear in death. This is the power of Christ in me. From life's first cry to final breath, Jesus commands my destiny. No power of hell, no scheme of man can ever pluck me from His hand. Till He returns or calls me home, here in the power of Christ I'll stand. Till He returns or calls me home, here in the power of Christ I'll stand.
Thanks, everyone. Take a seat.
Do you want to invite me for songs? Suggest songs.
What? Speak louder.
You're supposed to tell them to suggest songs for next time for Palm Sunday.
Oh, is that my bit? I thought that was
It's
Gary's
Gary's
bit.
bit, really.
Oh, nobody told me.
Oh, it's on the paper.
Well, I can't remember to do it because I wasn't told to do it. It's
Do you want
Gary's
me to
bit.
do it? Do you
Yeah,
want me to do
Gary.
it?
Yeah, let's blame Gary. Yeah.
Somebody bring Gary's box.
I can take the blame. Come on, Ben. Come on down, Ben. Do you remember that? Sure, this is Ben. You know, like, isn't that fabulous? This is a box that I spent many hours decorating. throwing an old hymn book, but nobody will worry about that. So, what we do in a month is we give you the chance to suggest songs that you would like us to sing as part of our gathering. There is a very clever reason for this. It takes all responsibility of the band when you don't like a song. And when you do, it's of course our responsibility. We've achieved it. So, this is great. So the next, we're doing Palm Sunday next. So Palm Sunday is the theme of our next. So if you've got something that you either really like, you feel really matches what we're about, and you think would be great to sing for Palm Sunday, then there are some slips. Drop it in this box, and then we will do our best to include as many of them. Taking into account lots of things like, Benny's doing some wonderful things here. I feel like I'm on a plane, Ben. And you're telling me where the emergency exits are when I do something really embarrassing and need to run. And then we kind of made decisions on it, but we try and include as much as possible, and we had loads of great suggestions last time, and we've held on to some of them for next time. Ben was modelling the slips. He's going to do it again, because he just loves modelling. Getting even better. So just complete one of those and put the suggestions in, and it'll be really helpful. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for
Not telling you to.
dealing with my quirkiness.
We're coming to our question for sharing now. We always have a question each week because it's a really useful way to connect with other people and just to have a bit of a laugh or even a serious, deep and meaningful about the relevant focus for the day. I actually feel I've been a bit stitched up by this question because it says, have you ever had a mountaintop experience? Now, I'm not given to be climbing mountains or going for long hikes, so I really had to dig deep with this one. It's so bad that I was invited to go on a birthday walk with my wife and one of her friends, and I was like, why? Why would I do that? So, yeah, and as it turned out, you went up the hills, didn't you? The Malvern Hills, the ridges, and there was no view because it was foggy, because we live in England, so I was right. But in terms of a mountaintop experience, that kind of moment of realisation, I've had a few really so far in my life, and I think, you know, big ones being the fact I'm an introvert, huge revelation, super, super helpful to understand that about myself. Also, like, I was at the gym this morning and I realised how lovely it is to go to the gym on a Sunday morning instead of going to church, which I did for many, many years of my adult life, and actually it makes so much more sense to go to the gym when it's quiet, when it's not too early, like before work, when I'm not too tired, so we enjoyed that. But I think the most significant revelation I've had, the most significant kind of moment of clarity in recent years has been the fact that when it came to the point when I came out, having met my now wife, I realised that I didn't have to choose between my faith and my sexuality. I realised I could leave the church that I used to go to instead, and that's what I did. So, have a chat with the person next to you, if we can make small groups to include everyone. If you're watching online, you can put comments in the chat on YouTube, and we'll feed back in about 5 minutes, and hopefully you may have had a mountaintop experience that you're willing to share.
Just assume that happens. I'm saying, oh yeah, but I just need down here. I don't need down enough.
I think primarily there because I could the same sort of thing that's really nice. Wow. I think the thing that brought me going down the pit, and then it was really
And then you were like, oh, I need some new track. You can find that's been great.
That's been really good. Keep doing this.
Started the transformation of my children to the top of that. And then the college was out of conclusion, like never really shaken off. And like kind of stayed there. A lot of training in that building, but that was like a my hobby. I know this is true. Yeah, I was working. But also, I was already singing the lesbian
They do the trick.
Well, a lot of them, to be honest with you, you know, practice. Enough people where it makes sense.
If you know someone, you know the hills right up above.
I haven't been there.
Okay, so you can basically walk, and the wall's just this one time, I think it's separate. To walk, and just have this profound sense of, you know, think about how often Jesus walked everywhere. You know, if you think about it, he walked absolutely everywhere. And just that, I don't know, I still don't know quite how to describe it, but that sense of not even the Jesus was walking with me, but Jesus was walking in me, and that I was somehow in Jesus' footsteps, and literally, you know, things like that, it's hard absolutely put into words. I am not describing this.
Yeah, you can.
Stunning.
Yeah.
At the time, it just left me, and I think more than anything else, it just really took me. It's not enough to say Jesus is good. Jesus is good. There's something about Christ, you know, lives in us. There are no words for it. And it's kind of have to grasp it back to it. So I felt
That embodiment thing.
yes, yeah. It was. highly recommend it. You don't have to walk if you go to
No, yeah, I have thought about it.
Yeah.
I had a friend come back from 2 weeks.
Yeah, yeah.
And she was like, came to my door to drop me off. I felt like her face was glowing with like the spirit. That was like, oh, I can tell you how the same thing happened. Yeah.
Okay, so matters on the north side, but you basic, well, I usually get that by going up the yeah, it's a bit out of one, so I can't remember where the nearest one is. North way, yeah, and if you just look up to one, you Google it really.
Okay. Right, does anyone have a mountaintop experience they would like to share?
I have a sort of mountain story. It's not.
Is it like a hill?
It's a cliff. So it was a cliff. It was in the Peak District. I don't know if Catherine actually remembers this.
I was remembering it, yes, I was, yeah.
We went to a summer school at Cliff College a few years back, there were probably about 5 of us that went up the cliff for a very impromptu, spontaneous walk, and we took a guitar, and then we did like worship on top of the cliff, and it was probably the moment where you just realise that everything goes away, and you're left with God and God's creation, and everything else doesn't really matter.
We sung the song, I can't if the stars can worship God, so can I. We sung that, and I was thinking maybe the first time I sung that, and to just be up on, those people that know Cliff College, to be up there looking down with a beautiful singing voice by your side. Yeah, it's lovely.
That's beautiful. Anyone else? Faith? Do you want to come up?
Yeah.
Yay, Faith.
Yeah, so mine is, back when I was in the States in seminary, if you know the Peter Gabriel song Salisbury Hill, that was really connected to like this spiritual experience I had in seminary. But I didn't know it was a real place. I thought it was just like a metaphor. And so then like, when I found out researching the song, I was like, oh, that's a real place. And I was still living in America. And I was like, one day I'm going to climb Salisbury Hill, not knowing I was ever going to live here. And so then I moved over here, was visiting a friend, and she asked, she lives near Bath, or lived near Bath, and asked if there was anything I'd like to do. And just randomly in my head, I thought, I wonder if she lives near Salisbury Hill. I had no reason to think she did, but her house was a 10-minute drive from Salisbury Hill. And so I was like, I just really need to go up Salisbury Hill. And I told her the story about the song. And so like that weekend, like we played the song, we're like playing it all the way there, like it just going do, 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 do. And then we climbed up Salisbury Hill together. And it was just, yeah, the song continues to have different meanings for me.
Yeah, lovely.
Anyone else want to share? Go on.
So I was thinking in terms of metaphorical mountains. We'll be doing open mic.
Oh, okay.
Name and pronouns.
My name is Matt. My pronouns are he, him. Now doing open mic, some sort of comedy style. I was thinking about mountains in terms of metaphorical, and we were thinking with Tash about the comparisons between what is a mountaintop experience and an epiphany. We're thinking about epiphany, how it seems to strike you, whereas mountaintop suggests there's some sort of struggle up. And I suggest that my struggle up would have been the realisation that it's quite a deep and sort of sombre subject, but one that I talk on a lot is I discovered that I come from a domestic violent family, which I'm now alienated from. And then at the same time, I also discovered I was in a previous relationship many years ago in an abusive relationship. So it was that sort of struggle up, and then sort of when Tash was saying they looked back and looked at their church and thought, I don't need to be part of this anymore. That was sort of the same for me. I was able to look down the mountain and be like, actually, I don't need Dad, don't need their name, they might try to sue me. And then it becomes, how do you go down the mountain, as we were also talking about, and realising how you then apply it to your life, and what's the next mountain experience that you have to lead. But it's also quite freeing, because once you've climbed the mountain, you feel a sense of achievement. And I definitely felt a sense of almost excitement that I now get to face life without domestic violence for the first time in my life, and that was very exciting itself.
Whoa. I don't think we need a sermon on this.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Anyone else would like to share? Or hand over?
to
Joel reading.
Oh, is it?
It's Joel.
Joel.
It's Joel.
Well, that's not.
Where's Joel?
He's right there.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I'm Joel. My pronouns are he, him. I'm going to tell you a story of actually about two saint weirdo characters that meet. I don't know if it'd be really interesting to know if anyone knows this story. The main saint is known as Sadhu Sundar Singh. Who hands up those who know of Sadhu Sundar Singh? A few people. That's good. He was born in 1889 into a Sikh family in the Punjab, where he grew up questioning and exploring various faiths, partly because his closest friend, who was his mum, encouraged him to. His mum said, make sure you kind of spend some time with God before you have breakfast. It's very important. But she passed away when he was 14, and he was heartbroken. And in fact, he made this ultimatum to God saying, step in, show yourself properly, or I'm going to take my own life. And on the very night that he planned to commit suicide, he had a vision of Jesus. And he'd been quite opposed to the Christian faith, but this weird vision just completely transformed him. He declared himself a Christian, was then disowned by his family, and then wandered around India preaching about his hope and faith in Jesus. So he stood out from other Christians in very clear ways. He was wearing the saffron turban and robe that was usually associated with the sadhus, who were these wandering Hindu holy men. And he had ecstatic supernatural experiences with God, and he kind of embraced a life of hardship and suffering. He was tempted to be poisoned, imprisoned, and stoned. And although he never criticized any religious practices, in fact, he seemed to have a great respect for Hinduism, Islam, Buddhism, he would always want to talk about Jesus and how Jesus had transformed him. And it was for this reason that he wandered for months, even years at a time, across India, braving the elements and talking about Jesus. So, if you know anything about him, you know that he was thrown into a dry well full of corpses for 3 days before being freed by a mysterious person. You also know that while he was meditating, a tiger approached him, went up to his throat, but then just left him again. There's amazing stories. But what we're going to talk about is the summer of 1912. This is the encounter we're going to talk about, okay? And it's very, very mountaintop. Here we go. So he was preaching in a state in northern India, across from the Himalayas, and it's not too far away from Mount Kailash in Tibet. Now, he loves Tibet. Tibet, there's this, yeah, there we go. He loves Tibet. Tibet does this weird thing to him where he feels really at peace when he's there. He feels refreshed and rejuvenated spiritually. And this Mount Kailash is this supremely sacred site for 4 religions: Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and Bon, and is believed to be the cosmic axis of the world. If you look at Mount Kailash, it's amazing. It's a really, really amazing place. So he thinks, I want to go spend time with some pilgrims there, talk to people, find out where they're at. You know, it's only like 500-600 miles away. That's an easy walk for me. I mean, for him, like 500-600 miles, that's an easy walk for him. So he makes his way to the mountain, and what you do is you don't actually go up to the top of the mountain, you circumnavigate it as a pilgrim. Depending on your faith, you either go around it clockwise or anti-clockwise. Not knowing what he would encounter, he wasn't kitted out with proper mountain kit. He just had his robe, his cloak, and sandals. He lost his footing, tumbled down a slope, and lay there unconscious. When he woke up, he looked over and saw an opening to a cave. And there, right in the front of the cave, was an old man. This man's hair covered this guy's entire body. his eyebrows were so long they formed a screen over his eyes. So this guy breaks the silence and says, before we start a conversation, let's have a word of prayer. This is what this old guy says. So the guy kneels down, prays, and then ends his prayer in the name of the Lord Jesus. So very soon in the conversation, it becomes clear to Sundar Singh that this old hermit is actually a Jesus follower too. So he says, you've got to tell me your life story. I will not go into this guy's life story, but I will tell you one weird fact about it. He was born in Alexandria in Egypt in a strict Muslim family in 1594. So he's quite an old person, quite old. Considering this story takes place in 1912, if you're born in 1594. So there you go. He'd been living on this mountain, living off various fruits and herbs and plants for a long time. They have these beautiful conversations. And it's a true mountaintop experience for Sundar Singh. He gets to meet this saint who says, look, I've been called to just pray for people. And apparently he's been spending centuries doing this. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. In fact, he says the climate conditions, if I was to leave the mountain, would probably not suit my body. So, of course, when Sundar tells people that there's this guy on the mountain who's like 350 years old, they're like, yeah, that's not true. He says, okay, well, he places a little challenge for them in a popular Christian newspaper in 1917 and says, all those who want to go to Mount Kailash should inform me 2 months in advance so that I can advise you how to equip yourself for the journey. And sure enough, there's 4 missionaries. They're like, we can do this. 4 Western missionaries. Yeah, for sure. Let's give this a go. But it's a hard trek, and all of them give up. So, as a missionary, Sundar used uncomplicated words and spoke with an immensely just like creative bunch of wonderful parables. But the thing that is so beautiful is that he really shunned the institutional church. His faith was a very Indian faith. You know, he was spending time with lots of Western missionaries that he had friends that were Westerners. But it's so refreshing to hear a faith that is entirely Eastern and has got this beautiful connection to Sikhism and Buddhism. And so Sundar himself was last seen in 1929 because he wanted to go to Tibet again. And so he wandered, when he was 40 years old, he wandered out into the Himalayas and disappeared. No one ever heard from him again. So there you go. God's family is wider than you thought it was. It's more interesting. And it is possible that there's a 450-year-old man right now in Tibet who's praying for you. We don't know.
Hey.
Hi everyone, so we're going to be doing our next song. I have been doing some songwriting for church, and this is the second song that we're debuting. Thank you. We Are Diamonds is all about the beauty of marginalised communities, how it's not always recognised by wider society, but how we know within ourselves just all of the gifts and the amazingness that we have to offer this world. So it's a song of joy, it's a song of celebration. I encourage you, if you are able to, please stand and join in and feel free, because it's quite an upbeat and joyful song. And yeah, I hope you like it.
We were going to encourage people to dance as well if they felt the need, but that might be a step too far. But you're welcome to dance.
Let's push it in.
Please do stand if you're willing and able.
We are diamonds that got left in the dirt. when we have no time, just trying to survive. Set your flame alive. One more time. When we feel like the well has gone dry, when our arms are too tired to lift them high, when we have no time, just trying to survive. Set your flame alive. Set your flame alive. Set your flame alive.
Yes, go ahead.
Thanks everybody, take a seat.
Hello. I'm Milo Behe, and this is the scripture reading, which is from Matthew 17, verse 1 to 9. So, 6 days later, Jesus took Peter and the two brothers, James and John, and led them up a high mountain to be alone. As the men watched, Jesus' appearance was transformed, so that his face shone like the sun, and his clothes became white as light. Suddenly, Moses and Elijah appeared and began talking with Jesus. Peter exclaimed, "Lord, it's wonderful for us to be here. If you want, I'll make 3 shelters as memorials, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." But even as he spoke, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and a voice from the cloud said, "This is my dearly loved son, who brings me great joy. Listen to him." The disciples were terrified and fell face down on the ground. Then Jesus came over and touched them. "Get up," he said. "Don't be afraid." And when they looked up, Moses and Elijah were gone, and they saw only Jesus. As they went back down the mountain, Jesus commanded them, "Don't tell anyone what you have seen until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead."
Thanks, Milo. If you haven't met, my name's Danielle. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the pastor of IGB, although we're a really collaborative community, so you could potentially come for like a month and not realize that I'm the pastor, which is quite a good way to be, I think. I had a bit of fun with Canva the last week, as I often do, and I found this lovely kind of lino cut wood picture of the Transfiguration, the story that we just heard, and I had to put glitter behind it because I'm a bit obsessed with glitter at the moment. But I love how in this picture it looks like Peter, James, and John are like trying to stop the glitter from falling in their eyes on Jesus. This makes me laugh. So this story has been a really beautiful thing for me to be sitting into this last couple of weeks as we think about Lent. So I'm not from like a very liturgical background and didn't grow up with like collectionary readings or much Lent really. So for me to like discover this little story that's told as part of that lectionary, that flow of the year has been really a lovely thing. And I'm seeing it today as a kind of bridging story. That's what I've been thinking of it as. It bridges Lent. It bridges Ash Wednesday to Easter. It bridges stories of Jewish heritage with the story of Jesus, and it bridges Jesus' humanity with Jesus' divinity and death and life. And so I've been loving doing that as I've been kind of doing some other Lent reading. It's really flowed into what God's been speaking to me about. So I'm going to share a bit of that with you today. So first, I didn't think through the staple in this paper. Jewish heritage. I'm seeing it as a link from Jewish heritage to universal fulfillment. For me, this story feels a lot like poetry. It really lends itself to singing and to music and to art. It's a good story. It's a good story because it reflects backwards and it reflects forward. Again, what's happened in the past and how it connects to the future as well. So this piece of art here is not Jesus on the mountain. It's actually Moses on Mount Sinai. where the scriptures say that his face shone. So one of the characters that's up there on the mountain with Jesus had a mountaintop experience like he did. Equally, this picture, not Jesus on the mountain, it's Elijah on Mount Carmel. His mountaintop experience. And this is Jesus. This is a piece of art called The Transfiguration of Jesus by Karl Bloch in 1865. And I love the idea of this radiant light pouring out of Jesus' face onto his disciples and just them getting to experience that moment. So many of the first generation of Jesus' followers, as you know, were Jews who would have seen Jesus' life, death, and resurrection as a fulfillment of God's promises to the people of Israel. So obviously Moses and Elijah are the two most obvious references. Moses is the one who gave the law and delivered Israel from bondage in Egypt. Elijah was one of the greatest prophets of Israel. Their presence at this event would have signaled to some that Jesus was the Messiah, and to others that Jesus was the fulfillment of the law and the prophets. Again, staple, I shouldn't staple. The other thing is, that's been really important to me, is Jesus, this story of Jesus, bridging Jesus' humanity with Jesus' divinity. In some ways, this is kind of like Jesus' coming out story, the revealing of his true nature, the messianic secret, as it's sometimes called. And I love how in this story, Jesus reveals himself to his inner circle, these three folks, these three important people in his life. He lets them see his true radiance when they've only known him as a fleshly character up to this point. They get to hold the knowledge of who he truly is with him. And maybe that's to help them understand, or maybe it's to help Jesus feel held through the season and what's coming. He knows what's coming ahead. I particularly love that Jesus includes Peter here. I find it really encouraging. Peter, who has this bold, kind of imperfect faith in Jesus, which I think we can learn a lot from. If you remember, if you know the kind of sequence of events, a few chapters earlier, we have the story of Jesus walking on water and Peter being like, oh, I'm gonna come out to you. And like, he does it, but he also, loses it and falls into the water. Well, I love that he did it. I love that he tried. And here we have Peter also kind of doing, oh, I see what's going on here. Let me help build memorials for you, Jesus, before he really has all the information. And, Jesus doesn't comment on that in this story, but I love that enthusiasm, that excitement that comes out of Peter, that isn't perfect, and that's one of the key people that Jesus has around. He doesn't have the person who's all like theologically clued up. He has the friend who's really super keen to just get going and to love and help him. Peter, later, is the one that Jesus calls the rock on whom he'll build his church. He's also the one that denied him 3 times at his death. So to me, that gives me a lot of hope for myself. So we also said Jesus bridges life and death and foreshadows what's to come in this story. He says to his followers that are with him, don't tell anyone about this until I've died and been resurrected. He's foreshadowing for them what's going to come, getting them ready. For me, I've been reflecting this lens on my own church tradition, and for me, I grew up, maybe this will resonate with some of you, I grew up in a church that pretty much always talked about Jesus' death and resurrection like every week, and it was the kind of thing where you didn't really properly do it unless you got this whole clear gospel message in there. And then I went on to work for an organization that pretty much did the same thing. And I feel like my big revelation of like the last 5 or so years is like the humanity of Jesus and the fact that Jesus sweat and stunk and drank and ate and was with his friends, and God took on flesh to be with us here, and how amazing that is. And that's been something that's been really important. And probably, you've seen that, if you've been around IGB, you've seen that kind of pour out, and how I've shared and others have shared a lot about the humanity of Jesus. But I'll confess that actually, I've been wrestling a little bit, whether I was conscious of it or not, with the divinity of Jesus. Not that I didn't believe it, but what do I connect with in that? What is the death and the resurrection of Jesus mean for me now, if I'm not so convinced about how I shared it with others earlier? So I'm still in the midst of like working some of those things out. It's one of the reasons why I chose the Lent book that we're reading together. Is I just need some help forming some of the language about how I talk about these things. So there you go. That's my little confession for you. I think that being from that tradition that over spiritualized Jesus, for me, I've needed this time to really sink into Jesus's humanness, and that's been a beautiful thing. I was brought back to thinking about some verses from Philippians. These might be familiar to you. I've got this translation from, it's the Jewish Annotated New Testament, and it's a different translation than I've seen before that I think is probably more accurate to the original Greek that it was written in. So I'm just going to share a bit with you. It says, though he was in the form of God, Christ Jesus did not consider equality with God as something to be exploited, but emptied himself, taking on the form of a servant, being born in human likeness. Now, I think the version that I always grew up with was, he did not consider equality with God as something to be grasped, but made himself nothing, or something to that effect. I think actually going to this version is a lot more accurate. The word empty that's used here comes from the Greek word that's rooted in kenosis, the self-emptying of the divine nature, the Jesus choosing not to live as a God. Let's think about that. The choice not to live as a God when you could be. To me, that's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah. Oh, I missed a verse, didn't I? And being found in human form, this passage also links together the body and the spirit of Jesus. Being found in human form, he humbled himself and became obedient to the point of death, even death on the cross. Therefore God also exalted him and gave him the name that is above every name, so that the name of Jesus every knee should bend. Yes. We are going to try something a bit different today. Going back to my glitter. I have a little bit of something to read to you, and we're going to do some glitter blessings for folks at the end of this. So at the start of Lent, some of us offered glitter ash blessings in the gay village for Ash Wednesday. The ash represented mourning, and drawing from queer history, the glitter that we used represented a gritty, scandalous hope. It somehow seemed incredibly fitting to bring this kind of same hope-laden glitter into our Lenten retelling of the story of Jesus' Transfiguration today. The season of Lent connects the morning of Ash Wednesday and the new life in celebration of Easter. As we've been talking about, Jesus' Transfiguration so spectacularly bridges the earthly, visceral humanity of Jesus with his shining, glittering, otherworldly divinity. I imagine Jesus still shining and glittering from his God moment in the mountains as he descended, shaking off a bit of that God sparkle, that glitter from the mountaintop onto his three disciples, Peter, James, and John. His inner circle, Peter, who he called the rock, on whom he builds his church, Jesus, the first of the apostles to die as a martyr, James, the first of the apostles to die as a martyr, and John, the beloved disciple, the only one of the 12 who was present at Jesus' crucifixion, and the ones of whom Jesus passed on the care of his mom. And as you know, glitter never really goes away. It has a way of getting onto everything and everyone, showing up in the most surprising and unexpected places. That little shock of refracted light that's stubbornly clinging onto the furniture or showing up on your cheek months after a party or a drag show. I'd like to think of a bit of that God sparkle up from the mountain, clinging to Jesus' inner circle of friends and being passed on and on and on. During this next song, we're going to invite anyone who wants to come forward to receive a glitter blessing. It's a reminder of the God sparkle. There's going to be folks around the room. Pat and Ben are going to be at the back corners, and I'm going to be here at the front with little pots of biodegradable glitter and oil. Biodegradable, don't worry. Unlike the blessings that we offered on Ash Wednesday, which mark our foreheads, this Transfiguration glitter blessing is on your hand for a very good reason. The subtle but glimmering blessing is to remind you that you can bring the light and the joy and the glitter of God's love and radical inclusion
to all that you touch. As with glitter, sometimes you're passing on the light and blessing to others without even knowing that you're doing it. For you today, this glitter blessing might simply be a reminder of who you are, a beloved, glittering child of God, whose very existence, as you are right now in this moment, is a delight to God. Or perhaps today you'll receive it as a charge to embrace your influence and capacity to bless others with what God has entrusted to you. As we say in our blessing every week at the end of each gathering, to have the courage to be all that God has created you to be, to consciously, scandalously spread your glitter more each day, and overflowing of the love that God pours into your life. This next song we're going to play is by Sufjan Stevens, and it tells the story of the Transfiguration. As you listen to the song and look at the Transfiguration artwork on the screen as it plays, pay attention to the sound as it builds, and feel free to sing along. The song is almost over the top and overflowing with voices and instruments. It's a hairbreadth away from chaos. Perhaps through the music and the glitter, you can feel, hear, and experience a bit of that spectacularly shining, dangerous, glittering love of God flowing for you today in this place. Jesus has passed on that God sparkle so that we too might be transformed into glittering light and gritty, scandalous hope, shining and sparkling like Jesus. Not everyone understands our kind of sparkle, but we sparkle nonetheless. Today, so this is your blessing and your charge. You're here to be light, bringing out the God colors in the world. Amen. So Ben and Pat will come forward. This is what it's going to look like. I'm here to be light, bringing out the God colors in the world. Pat wants it on her head. I'm here to be light, bringing out the God colors in the world. So feel free to come forward during this song. It's not playing. Is it on there? Something always has to go wrong. The volume's down.
Check the volume.
Check with central volume mixture as well.
The connection to
No.
Oh, it's there.
It's there. Just put it straight to 100.
Let's see. We're in the moment. Hang on.
It was beautiful, Danielle.
Thank you. I thought it'd be nice to just sing that chorus together, just a cappella. I'm going to pick a slightly different key. Ready? Lost in a cloud, a voice, have no fear. We draw near, lost in a cloud, a sign, Son of Man, turn your ear. Lost in the cloud, a voice, Lamb of God, we draw near. Lost in the cloud, the sign, Son of Man, Son of God. Beautiful. We're going to move on to communion together now, which is a really special thing for us here at IGB. So we see communion as the kind of ultimate act of Christian hospitality. And that means this table is open to you. Whoever you are, wherever you come from today, you're welcome at the table of God. And so we recognize too that comes with that, people have had different experiences of communion in the past and their different faith stories. Sometimes it's been used as a sign of exclusion. You're not good enough. I know some well-meaning people have said things like that in the past to me, in other church contexts. And so I want you to know that the table that we have, I'm going to keep saying it, is open to you. There's no restrictions, there's no barriers. You're invited to sit and eat with us. It's the bread and the wine that we share together. So I'm going to read some liturgy, and the words in black are the ones that we speak out together. And so feel free to join in with me. God calls us, community of saints, beloveds of God. We are invited to come and gather at the table of love and liberation, to feast on the dreams of God, to be nourished by but a taste of what God desires to do among us. God calls us from institutional halls of power, from shelters and the streets. God calls us from classrooms and pulpits, gay bars and prison cells. God calls us as we are, from wherever we are, to come and be in solidarity with Christ, who lives and loves on the margins. God whispers, come and live abundantly, turning from all that claims blessings flow from money, power, or control. To answer the call of Christ is to find ourselves, no matter our social location, choosing to align ourselves with the causes of the marginalized, the oppressed, the outcast, and the isolated, that together we might enflesh new possibilities of healing, of connection, of freedom from all that destroys. And so let us come to the table, expectant, eager, open, to tasting the rich blessings of heaven born from unexpected people and places and experiences. In this meal, we remember the life, death, and resurrection of the one who takes on flesh among us today. On the night he would be arrested, Jesus gathered his friends and companions, including Peter, James, and John, in the midst of a tense and dangerous time. They found each other at table, connecting over the story of God in flesh among them. And as they did so, Jesus took bread, gave thanks to God, broke the bread, and shared it with his disciples, saying, "Take, eat. This is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." When the supper was over, he also took the cup, gave thanks to God, and shared it with his disciples, saying, "Drink from this, all of you. This is the cup of the new covenant. Do this as often as you drink it in remembrance of me." And so we pray, come, Holy Spirit, breath of God, renewer of life. Settle on these gifts in all who gather here, that we might be transformed in our remembrance of your radical love, your eternal embrace, and your grace that makes all things new. Amen. So there's going to be stations at the back here with bread and wine in the back corners. And as we sing this communion song together, join in with the song and you'll receive the elements in the back. And when you've done that, come back and sit with us and keep singing. And feel free to sit in the midst of this moment of welcome.
Open your have more questions than you can count. Open your eyes, look all around. You want to know, this is your home. Come and remember who you are here. Do this to remember who I am. Come and remember you belong here. All belong here at this table. At this table, come as you are, broken and bleeding someday. At this table, eat and be filled. Come and drink in His grace.
As we kind of finish this beautiful meal together, I'd like us to just take a moment to sit into some of the blessings we received today. Maybe they've been reminders for you. Maybe they felt like a challenge. Maybe they just reassured you of what you already knew. I pray that you would know how deeply loved you are. And I'd like us all to each take a moment wherever we are. There'll be a person sitting on your right and your left, and we're just going to hold space for each other. If you're somebody that prays, you can hold space. Not somebody that doesn't pray, you can hold space. If you do pray, I'd ask you to pray a blessing that the peaceful person will know how deeply loved and sparkly they are, whether they feel like it at the moment or not. So take a moment and pray just silently words of blessing for the person on your right. And now the person on your left. And so so we give thanks that we can meet one another at the table of love and liberation open to all. That we can connect over the story of God enfleshed among us. God who became man, God who is God together. Today, here in this place. For the sake of our shared lives and the lives of those yet to come, we ask you to nourish us, God. Renew our hope that soon Christ may rise again amongst us. Amen.
Hello, my name's Ben, my pronouns are he, him, and I'm here to just remind you that being here, being part of this community is wonderful, and we are glad that you're able to be with us today, but also doing all of this isn't cheap. We want to be the best blessing that we can be to you and also to our wider community around us. And if you feel you're in a place that you're able to, it would be really appreciated if you could take one of these cards and set up a regular donation to IGB. That would be great. But if you can't do that, there are other ways that you can give. You can be involved in part of the welcome team, part of the kids team. There are many ways in which you can contribute. And if you're not able to do that either, just you being here is a blessing to us. So thank you for already blessing us by being here. So if you want to give, please give. But if you're not in a place able to, you're already a blessing. Thank you.
So we're coming towards the end of our time here together, so just a few things that are coming up for you to know about. There is an optional social this afternoon, running into this evening, where there is a drag show downstairs. So if you're up for it, if you're free, if you don't have anything else to do, come and join some of us, not me, unfortunately, but come and join. But come and join those people that are going to be downstairs, having just fun, having some soft drinks or non-soft drinks, and then waiting for the drag show. So that would be a really cool thing to check out. Please do remember to fill in your cards with song suggestions. Again, Ben is holding the slips. The box is over there. If you've got any great suggestions for Palm Sunday, they would be really, really welcome. If you are also interested in learning more about Lent, you can join in with the next Zoom gathering on Tuesday with the book, which I think is on the screen. I haven't read it, but I buy too many books and don't read them, so maybe. But a great thing just to learn, because like Danielle said, like some of us are from an Anglican background and might be familiar with Lent. If you've got questions, it'd be a great opportunity to do some learning. And I think it only lasts for about
Just like, it's a 30 minutes, tight.
Brilliant. So 30 minutes just to learn something more about Lent would be a really cool thing. Next week, please do come along. I'll be leading the service, the session next week. Thank you very much, Gary. Looking forward to it on John chapter 3. Come and see how I can link Nicodemus and Stormzy.
Challenge.
So yeah, we're going to close now with one more song from the band. So if you are free and able to stand, please do so. Thank you.
Amazing, I don't even need to do my line, thanks Dash. But no one's doing it.
Only you have the camera.
If everyone is free and able, please do stand. It's the table, boys. Yeah, Danielle's just asked me to share with you that with this song, with confidence we choose to sing these words slightly changed from the original, Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved and set me free. In singing this, we centre our thoughts on the liberation found in God's love, and we believe in a God that loves us unconditionally, and therefore we're not wretches but are loved and beautiful in our diversity.
us. We've come to the end of our service. I hope you've had a good afternoon. If you do have any questions, you want to do any further talking, please speak to Danielle, anyone with a rainbow lanyard. We'd be happy to spend some time with you. But I'm going to close with our regular blessing. So if you want to say it along with me, may we live fully, love wastefully, and have the courage to be all that God has created us to be. Amen. Have a great week.
I feel like you need to play the Diamond song again.
Casually. Well, the one that's on the floor over here.
Yeah.
Feel free to make yourselves a drink, enjoy yourselves, have a chat while we play this. It's
no pressure.
No pressure to join.
I mean, if you like to stand on
I mean, it's up to you. Words, the PowerPoint isn't even on anymore, so.